My ex's sister asked me to fix her sink, then said, "Stay, I've been waiting for an excuse." I still remembered the sound of the front door closing the day my relationship ended. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but somehow that quiet click echoed in my head for nearly 2 years. So when my phone buzzed with a message from my ex's younger sister asking if I could fix her leaking kitchen sink, I almost ignored it. Then another text appeared. "Please, I don't really have anyone else to ask." I should have said no. Instead, I grabbed my toolbox. Her name was Lily, and unlike her older sister Emma, she'd always been brutally honest. She never played games. If she liked someone, she showed it. If she was upset, you knew within seconds. Emma had been different. She could smile while planning her exit. Our breakup wasn't explosive. There was no cheating, no screaming, no broken dishes. She simply sat across from me one rainy afternoon and said she'd fallen out of love. 5 years together, gone in 5 minutes. I packed my things, wished her happiness, and disappeared from their family's life. Or at least I thought I had. Lily lived alone now, in a small house on the edge of town. She had inherited it from their grandmother after finishing graduate school. I'd only been there once before, years ago, during a family barbecue. She opened the door before I even knocked. "You actually came," she said. She looked older than I remembered. Her hair was shorter, and she wore an oversized gray sweater with rolled-up sleeves. "You sounded desperate." "I kind of am." She stepped aside. "The sink's trying to flood my kitchen." I laughed. "Lead the way." The kitchen wasn't nearly as bad as I'd imagined. Water dripped steadily from beneath the cabinet, while several towels soaked up the puddle. "I've watched 6 videos," she admitted. They all started with turning off the water. And I couldn't figure out which valve they meant. I smiled despite myself. "I'll handle it." She leaned against the counter while I unpacked my tools. "You still carry the same toolbox?" "It still works." "So do you." I looked up. "What?" She quickly shook her head. "Nothing." The leak turned out to be a cracked connector under the sink. I had a spare hose in my truck, so the repair took less than 40 minutes. When I turned the faucet back on, everything stayed dry. "There. You just saved me hundreds of dollars." It wasn't that bad. It was to me. She walked over and looked beneath the cabinet like she expected the leak to magically return. Then she looked back at me. "You want coffee?" "I should get going." She hesitated, then quietly said, "Stay." I froze. I've been waiting for an excuse. Those words landed harder than they should have. "What do you mean?" She looked down at the floor. "I've wanted to call you for months." I stared at her. "Lily." "I know." She sighed. "I know exactly how this sounds." I slowly closed my toolbox. "Then explain it." She poured 2 cups of coffee before answering. "I missed having someone who actually listened." "Your friends?" "They're busy." "Family?" She laughed bitterly. "You remember my family." Unfortunately, I did. Their parents loved appearances more than honesty. Every holiday felt like a business meeting disguised as dinner. Everything had to look perfect. No arguments, no problems, no weakness. Lily had always been the outsider. Creative, messy, real. She handed me a mug. "After you left." She paused. "Things changed." I didn't answer. "Emma got engaged." That surprised me. "Really?" "Last year." "Congratulations to her." "It lasted 4 months." "Oh." "He left." I took a slow sip. "I'm sorry." "She wasn't." "What?" "He said she never let anyone get close." I looked out the window. That sounded painfully familiar. Lily sat across from me. You know what the strange part was? "What?" "She started talking about you." I nearly laughed. "Why?" "I think losing him made her realize what she'd thrown away." I shook my head. "Too late." "I know." Silence settled between us. Then Lily smiled. You fixed the sink. I did. But maybe I really asked you here because... She stopped herself. Because I wanted to know if seeing you still hurt. And? It doesn't. I nodded. Good. She looked almost disappointed. What about you? It doesn't hurt anymore either. That was mostly true. The pain had faded. What remained was caution. Before leaving, I carried the broken pipe to the trash outside. As I walked back, I noticed Lily sitting alone on her porch. She looked peaceful. Thanks again, she said. No problem. You'll answer if I call? If your sink behaves, hopefully not. She laughed. No promises. She called 3 days later. Not about plumbing. My car won't start. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. You have terrible luck. I know. When I arrived, she was already standing beside the car with jumper cables she'd clearly never used. I bought these. Do you know how? No. Figures. The battery was dead. 5 minutes later, the engine roared back to life. You keep rescuing me. I'm beginning to think you're doing this on purpose. She smiled but didn't answer. Instead, she said, Dinner? I thought I was fixing your car. You did. So heroes deserve dinner. I should have declined. Instead, I said yes. That dinner stretched into 3 hours. We talked about work, travel, books, dreams we'd abandoned. Not once did we mention Emma. For the first time in years, I laughed without forcing it. Weeks passed. Then months. Our accidental meetings slowly became intentional ones. Saturday coffee, Sunday hikes, movie nights. Neither of us called them dates. Maybe because saying the word would make everything too real. One evening while walking beside the river, Lily suddenly stopped. I need to ask something. Go ahead. If something ever happened between us, I already knew where this was going. Would you always see me as Emma's little sister? I looked at the water before answering. No. You wouldn't? I stopped seeing you that way a long time ago. She looked surprised. When? The day you admitted you couldn't find the water valve. She laughed. That's romantic. It was memorable. Her smile faded into something softer. I've liked you for years. I blinked. What? Not while you were dating Emma, she quickly added. I'm not that person. When then? After. How long after? A long time. I rubbed the back of my neck. Lily. I know. I smiled. I just wasn't expecting that. She stepped closer. I'm not asking you to answer tonight. I appreciate that. I just didn't want to keep pretending. That night I barely slept. Not because I was confused, because I was scared. Dating someone's sister wasn't simple, especially your ex's sister. People would judge. Her family would explode. Emma. I didn't even know how she'd react. A week later, my answer came without words. Lily slipped while hiking after a sudden rain. I caught her before she fell. For one long second, she was inches away. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then she whispered. So? Okay? I think this is usually where people kiss. I laughed. I think you're right. So I kissed her. It wasn't dramatic. No music, no fireworks, just relief. Like finding home after driving for hours in the dark. When we finally told her parents, the reaction was exactly as bad as we'd imagined. So, you can't be serious, her father shouted. Of all the people in this town. Her mother simply stared. Emma said nothing, not at first. She just looked at us, then quietly asked, Can I talk to him alone? Lily squeezed my hand before walking away. Emma folded her arms. So. You love her? Yes. She looked toward the backyard, where Lily stood, pretending not to watch us. I always wondered if you'd look at someone else the way you looked at me. I stayed silent. I guess now I know. She smiled sadly. I'm sorry. Those words surprised me more than anything. For everything. I nodded. Thank you. You deserve happiness. So do you. When I left that evening, Lily met me beside my truck. Well, I think we survived. Barely. She slipped her hand into mine. You know, what? If my sink hadn't leaked, it would have been the car. She laughed. If not the car, the washing machine. If not that, you would have invented something. She nodded proudly. Probably. I looked at the woman standing beside me and realized something simple but powerful. Life has a strange way of closing one door quietly, just so another can open when you're finally ready to hear it. The relationship I thought had broken me hadn't been the end of my story. It had only cleared the path to the person who had been patiently waiting, not for me to forget the past, but for me to heal from it. As we drove away together under the warm glow of the setting sun, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the smallest leak doesn't flood a house. Sometimes it opens the door to the life you were always meant to find.